St. Lucie County Public Schools, our meeting together for interviewing our candidates today. And we will start out with our interview with Diana Greene. Welcome.
Thank
We're glad
you.
to have you as part of our district and look forward to those wonderful answers that we know that you have in store for us. I'm going to just make an announcement and ask all of our board members to please make sure you speak into the mic clearly so that all of your answers can be heard well. Ms. Greene, please take a few minutes and give us a thumbnail sketch of your professional experiences, your beliefs on public school education, and why you're interested in becoming the next superintendent of St. Lucie County Schools.
Well, thank you, Dr. Mills. I started my education, I graduated from the University of North Florida, and I was very fortunate that I graduated during a time where teachers were very difficult to find. So before graduation, they brought us all into a room and said, "Where would you like to teach?" And I said, "Oh, anywhere." So I was very fortunate to start my teaching career in a little town outside of Duval. Well, all of Jacksonville is Duval County, and really did not have a full grasp of what I was about to encounter. I started as a Chapter 1 teacher. That's an old term from Title I, and it was the push-in model. I would go into the teacher's classroom and work with a small group of students. And after that school year, I figured out, wow, I really don't know how to be a teacher. I thought I did. I thought, going through all the classes. And so my grandmother was a teacher. And in talking with her, she gave me some very wise advice that, you're going to make mistakes, but everything that you do, ensure that you're doing it not to be right, but committed to doing what's right for children. And I've kind of taken that as my mantra throughout these 28 years that I've been in public education, and it's guided me through many situations that public education truly is the key to any of our students being successful. So I started out in Duval County for 1 year and then moved to Marion County, where I started my teaching career as a 5th grade teacher, and moved up through the system as I learned that we have the ability to impact students outside the classroom. And I wanted to be a principal because I thought in my classroom I impact maybe 20, back then you could have up to 35 students in your class. And I felt I needed to impact more students. So I went into administration. I started as a curriculum coordinator, then an assistant principal at the middle school level. And for good behavior, they allowed me to come out and be a principal back at elementary. But my true love is middle school because that is the crossroads of a child's life. They don't know up from down, and they are truly looking for direction. And so often they tend to find it in the wrong places, but they really want an adult or someone to care about them and help them make those tough decisions. Then I was asked to be Director of Staff Development under Jim Warford, who became the Chancellor of the state of Florida, and through that experience we implemented the continuous improvement model. I developed the training manuals for all of our school leadership teams, and we trained over 3,500 teachers in that model. And I truly believe that model assisted Marion County in becoming an A school district. At the time, I was the deputy superintendent. I served under Jim Yancey, who was the superintendent of Marion County, for 10 years. And at the time, I thought I wanted to be superintendent of Marion County, and Marion County elects their superintendent. It is not an appointed. And so I headed a campaign, raised over $75,000. Very proud, received over 65,000 votes, but I did not win. And I felt that I still had a lot to offer a school district, and had the great opportunity to apply for the superintendent's job in Manatee County. Came in second with 2 votes, and the superintendent, Mr. Rick Mills, sought me out, asked me to apply for the deputy superintendent, and so I've been in Manatee County for the past 2 years. I am the cross-bearer for public education. I feel that there is this undercurrent trying to dismantle public education, and we need people to stand up to ensure that that does not happen. I am very committed to choice because I believe parents deserve that choice. But if you do the job that needs to be done, whether you have 10 schools or 53 schools, if they're all excellent, parents will remain with public education. For too many students, we are their lifeline. We are the only entity that's going to help them either out of poverty, out of bad situations, helping them to realize their dream. And it is the role of public education to educate and inform our populace. We are the bearers of everything that happens in society. When things change in society, they come to public education first to try to impart that knowledge to students so that we don't continue to repeat errors of the past, that we don't continue to repeat history in which we may not be shown in a positive light. So our teachers are the real heroes in public education. They're the ones who come Monday through Friday, work 24/7 over weekends, trying to ensure that their students are grasping the concepts. And as we move into this era of the Florida State standards and college and career readiness, we need our teachers more than ever to continue to be on that forefront, continue to receive the support, the resources, the training that they need so that our students can become those 21st century learners.
Thank you very much. And your title is Dr. Greene. So
Yes.
Excuse me for calling you Mrs. Greene. The floor is open now for questions for Dr. Greene.
Dr. Greene, thank you so much for taking your time and visiting us here in St. Lucie County. How would you plan to close the achievement gap? For example, what strategies could be employed to improve the academic performance of African American males, the subgroup that has traditionally had the lowest academic performance in our district?
Well, first it starts with doing some analysis of the data, finding out root cause analysis, and it goes beyond test scores. In Manatee County, we have the same situation. I was sharing with one of the schools this morning that only 12% of our population is African American. However, we're ranked number 2 in the state for number of African American males classified as in EBD classes. And that is an enormous number. And we recognized that we needed to develop an action plan. 1, how can we reduce those numbers? 2, how can we be more proactive instead of reactive of once they're in the program, what do we do at that point? So in looking at St. Lucie's data, I would work with our executive leadership team and our principals to identify the locations of those students, where are they attending school, what is happening in their communities that surround that school. And so I would come about it in a 3-prong approach. 1, I would deal with the leadership and instruction that's happening at those schools and monitor whether is it what's best for those students, and can you develop programs or processes that would better fit those students, but at the same time keep them completely immersed in classes with their other peers, not sort of setting them apart, but ensuring that our teachers are truly trained in understanding how to teach African American students. There is a book that's called How Can You Teach Me If You Do Not Know Me? Is written by Dr. Stephen Peters. I brought Dr. Peters to Marion County, and we did a book study with our principals who had large numbers of African American students in their classroom. And it has made a tremendous difference in the activities that happen at those schools. It is not something that you can put a checklist. Did I do this? Check. Did I do that? It is more a way, changing the mindset, a way of thinking. One of the strategies in that book is talking about how they work, African American students like to work in groups. So those 3 schools that were a part of that project immerse themselves in Kagan training. Well, Kagan is a very collaborative group-type training that helps teachers utilize some of their strategies in helping students attack their academics in a different way. Well, it wasn't that we had a check. It was, we changed the mindset, we went to a research-based professional development program, and now that's working not only for the African American students at that school, but all of the students at that school. And just using that one simple strategy, that they work well working in groups. The second prong approach is dealing with their environment. Those schools that I talked about in Marion County, we hired a social worker assistant to work with those particular schools. We identified our 10% lowest performing students from the families at that school, and that social worker assistant was tied to those students. They made sure that they came to school every day. One of the issues we found was chronic absenteeism. That person would develop a relationship with the family, trying to identify, do you need support with clothing? The 3 schools had uniforms, so we made sure that the students had their uniforms. Those social worker assistants basically were the mentors for these students, and so they would monitor their progress on a week. They would give a weekly report to their principal. That report covered attendance, grades, whether they were having a parent-teacher conference. And so that principal had that other pair of hands and another set of eyes to kind of help those students through the system as well as their families. The third approach is ensuring that we have strong curriculum resources, not only in just those schools, but every school. I talked about the continuous improvement model. One of the pieces of the continuous improvement model is monitoring. And many times when we see the data, we just don't look at it and don't react. We look at the data, we analyze that information, and then what I like to call, we put faces to that information. Students aren't numbers. Numbers represent their ability, but it doesn't represent the whole story. And so our data teams, it brings teachers together to talk about the data. Let's create an action plan. How will we make adjustments in our information or in our instruction, and then how do we move forward? When I started as deputy superintendent in Marion County, over 60% of our African American students scored at level 1, the lowest level of FCAT. By the time I left, we had reduced that down to 20%. It was those 3 things that I believe played a major role in ensuring that we were getting closer to closing the gap. We hadn't closed it, but we were getting a lot closer. Currently in Manatee, we are starting our comprehensive action plan to reduce the number of African American males in EBD. And actually, I'll invite you, this Saturday we start with our community forum. It's called the African American Male in Crisis Summit. And Dr. Stephen Peters is our keynote speaker. He will be coming to speak to our community. And as well as our closing keynote speaker is Dr. Joe Martin, who also came from Liberty City, Miami, and the things he went through and how he overcame many of the issues that our young African American males face. And so that is the kickoff. We have sessions for mentoring, single parent. How do you use athletics to your advantage? We have multiple sessions for our communities to be involved, and one of the sessions also is the role of the church. They play a tremendous role in the lives of African American students, and so we are trying to get the awareness out in our community, helping them understand what are the issues we're facing, and then let's do this together. Let's come together. Let's work together on mentorship. Let's work together on chronic absenteeism. Let's see what can we do about areas such as summer slide. All of those pieces will come together under, we have a task force that is currently only school system employees, but we're hoping after the summit we can then start to add community representatives on our task force. That was kind of a lengthy answer, I'm sorry.
Very, very well answered, I believe. You covered a lot of areas in that answer, and a lot of experience with that. Floor is open for questions, please. Unless you had something else you wanted to say.
Well, I wasn't sure if you want to do your follow-up question or I'd just do it for you.
Go ahead and do that follow-up question. I appreciate that.
You hit a little bit about it just on your Saturday one, but how would you get to know all the diverse stakeholders within the community? I mean, you hit a little bit on the Saturday one, but how would you do it?
And also keeping in mind that 7 to 10% of our students live in poverty here in St. Lucie County, as well as we're a very diverse county.
Okay. Well, currently in Manatee County, 40% of our student population is Hispanic, and then I said our African is about 12%. So we have a very diverse school district in Manatee County. And the way that I have been able to connect with different organizations is I become members. I'm on the Executive Leadership Women's Council in Manatee County. It's an offshoot of United Way. I'm a big supporter of United Way, have been since I was a classroom teacher. And so I am working with United Way on what we're calling the third grade Reading on Grade Level Third Grade Initiative. It is out of the Patterson's Foundation. Sarasota County also has that initiative. And so we have 40 organizations sitting on that council, and I'm part of the steering committee. And we've identified 15 of our Title I schools that will be the initial kickoff. So when you have 40 organizations, I have the Boys and Girls Club, the YMCA, I have the Children's Council as a part of the membership. I have our homeless liaison as a part of the membership. So I'm basically touching almost every aspect of our school district. The one area that we need support and more assistance is connecting with our Hispanic community, finding those key leaders within that community to bring in as a part of the council so that we can have a very broad understanding and spectrum of our school district and our community. So that initiative is now a part of the county commission. It's part of the city council, our sheriff, our chief of police. They've all kind of come together to support that initiative. And we are starting the beginnings of that process of building that strong coalition to support our schools. The other piece of it is that I become a member of the community. I've joined a church in Manatee County. I try to be at events. I go to football games. I'm from Manatee. So when people ask me, where are you from? I say, I'm from Manatee County. It doesn't matter that I've only been there for 2 years. What matters is I've shown myself as a member of that community, and now people will see me in public, say, hey, I saw you on TV last night. And then I say, well, you need to change the channel. Look at something else.
Boring, huh?
Life's that boring, you watching me on TV. So I'm starting to feel, well, people know me. So I can go to a church and talk, and they know that I'm sincere or that I'm genuine about our children and that I believe their children are my children. And so those are the ways that I've connected with our community. Our superintendent also put a challenge to all the executive members of our, what we call cabinet. We all had to be members of a board or a part of an organization in the community. And if I'm fortunate to be your superintendent, I will be expecting the same thing from my cabinet or executive council.
All right, thank you.
Questions?
Diana, this is a convoluted question, so I'm going to read it slow. To me it is, anyway. All right. Based on your knowledge of St. Lucie County, what expectations of yours would be non-negotiable? And then the second piece is, what elements would you enable your school leaders to interpret to meet their unique needs and circumstances? Do you want me to read the first part again?
Sure.
Because to me, they're kind of unrelated. I don't know how I ended up with this one. But based on your knowledge of St. Lucie County, what expectations of yours would be non-negotiable?
Two things would be non-negotiable. Teaching and learning happens every single day. That's non-negotiable, that we're going to have high-quality teaching and high-quality learning happening every day. The second thing that would be non-negotiable is no child is unobtainable or no child is unreachable. What I mean by that is it doesn't matter whether the student is gifted, ASD, ESOL, no matter what challenges they bring, we will teach them. If they show up, then we are going to show up and we are going to deliver the very best that we have. Now, I expect that from the classroom to the school board room. My expectation would be that our custodial staff, they're going to show up every day and make sure our schools are clean. Our bus drivers are going to show up every day and make sure that they get our kids safely from home to school. That our secretaries, it takes all of us to ensure that St. Lucie is going to go to that next level. And it's about showing up with the right attitude and then doing your very best each and every day. I will never ask any of our employees to do anything that I am not willing to do myself. When I was a principal, I've literally cleaned the restroom if it needed to be cleaned and I didn't have the support at that time. I've done every role that we offer in the school district. I've been on the cafeteria serving line. I've been a teacher assistant. I've been on a school bus. I didn't drive the school bus, but I have been on the school bus riding with our students. So I know what it takes. I'm a Floridian. From Marion to Manatee to St. Lucie, we all are seeing the same things. We are all dealing with the same issues. So I know those issues like the back of my hand. And so when I ask something to be done, I know that I'm asking it in the spirit that I feel confident our teachers can do it or our other employees can do it, and I know it's what's best for our students.
Okay. Ms. Hawley.
Want to ask the second part of your question?
Well, I felt like she kind of covered that a little. I can.
So you know nothing about snow days then?
I know a lot about hurricane days, though.
There you go.
Okay, well, the second part, what elements would you enable your school leaders to interpret to meet their unique needs and circumstances?
Well, I think we have to have a standard. And in talking with the two schools, they seem to want to have some form of standardization. And I'll just use technology as a particular example, that we have a standard. But it is also my expectation that our school-based leaders know how to go beyond that standard. They know how to add that little bit of twist for their students. If I'm at a school and my population is 98% Hispanic, which we have 3 schools very similar to that in Manatee, whenever we have set the standard, I'm expecting that principal to know, how do I make the adjustment for my ESOL population, because I have a very large ESOL population. So we may have a district training day, and we may expect FSA standards unpacking to be a part of that training, but I'm also expecting that principal to say, now let's look at how this impacts our ESOL students. Let's bring in these additional strategies. So I know that each and every school is its own unique society, so to speak. But the key is are all of our arrows going in the same direction? I attended a boat show in Homosassa, and the boats all decorate and put on their own decorations. And as I shared with our school SAC chair people, every boat was different. Every boat was decorated in its own fashion, but every boat was going in the same direction. Every boat had an oar, every boat had a motor, every boat had the standard things that kept it afloat and moving forward. But that school principal is the one who's going to decorate it just a little bit differently because of the culture and students that they serve.
Dr. Greene, what internal communication plan do you see as necessary not only to ensure a school district moves forward with fresh and innovative ideas, but also to ensure that employees have a satisfying work environment? And just to reiterate that it's the internal communication plan that I'm most interested in this question.
Well, I think I would first start what's currently being used in St. Lucie. I shared with the school this morning that though I would be coming in with a different set of eyes and maybe a fresh set of eyes, I also have to recognize that there's historical knowledge, tradition, and I need to understand that before I decide I'm going to come in and make wholesale changes. So one of those items would be understanding how has communication happened to this point. But some of the things that I would implement that, I must credit my superintendent, Mr. Mills, is that in his first 100 days, he made sure he attended every single school in our district, and I would do the same. He met with every single faculty. I would then in the afternoon meet with support staff, custodial staff, food service staff, if possible. So I think first they need to see me and know that it won't be the first nor the last time they see me. The second part of that communication plan is I would like to see a district newsletter. We just went through that first round of end-of-course assessments, and the number one thing they kept saying was communication, and I went back and I analyzed. We sent out a monthly newsletter. Okay. That was just one form. But at the same time, we just implemented a whole new email system. So I should have known that probably 50% of them didn't read that communication. So I think you have to do multiple types of communication. The newsletters are tried and true, but also using your ConnectEd system, which is what we call our phone system. Once a month in Marion County, my superintendent would send out a message to teachers. And it wasn't long. It was simply, don't forget, training is happening, and the things that we're focused on. We're focused on 3 things. Every teacher is a reading teacher. Every day, something to do with reading must. It was constantly reminding the staff of the message he wanted them to have. The third thing I would do is I'm big on social media. Now, I don't personally use social media for my personal life, but I am big on that many of our young teachers use Twitter, use Facebook, that we need to find ways to encourage information back from our teachers, whether it is through private communication email accounts. In Manatee, when I first arrived, they used an email system called First Class, and I could actually talk to all my ESE teachers at one time. I could send them a message, and it only went to them, and no one else could see it, and they could dialogue back and forth. If we said, okay, we're going to try this new strategy next week, the following day I need to get feedback from each of you. How did that work? Trying to build, and now we're trying to build that same system with our Outlook to allow teachers to have that dialogue back and forth. We do not have enough professional development days. We do not have enough time to be in front of teachers face to face. So we have to now figure out how to use technology to our benefit. And those are some of the ways that you can connect with your, not only teachers, your bus drivers, your other service employees, to know that there's a connection between the district level. That same connection needs to happen between me and you. I would have regularly scheduled, whether it's once a month meetings with each of you, so that we are constantly in dialogue about where we are, what are the things on our school board agenda, what are the priorities for this year, how are we performing on those priorities. So communication is definitely something that we constantly talk about. I'm not going to say I will have mastered it, but I know that you have to do it multiple times and you have to repeat it. We tend to think, because we work with adults, that you say it once, I've told you. No, it is a constant, you have to come back and revisit that information. And as I see your vision and mission posted. That would be another thing. If we think that is crucial, then I should see that in every single building in this school district. If we want everyone to know the vision and mission, when I walk in every single school, that should be at least one of the first things I see. So that's another part of communication. Making sure things are posted in an area that everyone can see that information. I'm also big on meetings that are productive and that lead to action. So each week we have cabinet in Manatee. I would continue having weekly executive council meetings. We would have updates. I would like to have monthly meetings, consistent monthly meetings with the K-12 principals, and ensuring that the communication is a two-way street, not me dictating or not me continuing to give information, but that they can give information to me and that we can have that dialogue. One thing that Mr. Mills does is soup with the soup, and I would use that same event with our principals. So your school district is in 3 zones, so I may have soup with the red zone, soup with the blue zone. That way principals feel, okay, it's a small gathering, I can ask questions that maybe I would not want to ask in the large K-12 principal meeting.
Just as a follow-up on that, have you had any experience, or what have you utilized to provide for really meaningful employee recognitions?
Well, I'll talk about both Marion and Manatee. Mr. Mills has the Superintendent Coin of Excellence. It basically is a coin that would look similar to that, and on the side, on the flip side, it says Superintendent Coin of Excellence. And each of the executive council has a collection of those coins, and we basically are told you need to go find people for recognition. So one of the things that he has done that I think is phenomenal is whenever we have student celebration, they are given the superintendent's coin of excellence, and each time a different board member goes down with the superintendent and provides that recognition. Or a principal may email the superintendent and says, you know, my teacher just did this phenomenal thing, and so the superintendent puts a coin of excellence into a card, and he writes a personal letter, message to the teacher and mails it to their home or mails it to the school. Those are small type of recognitions that, you know, now the coins are starting, when can I get a coin? So it's starting to become something that teachers, are not just teachers, custodian, any employee looks forward to getting a coin of excellence that's the superintendent coin of excellence. In Marion County, we had probably one of the best statewide teacher recognition programs through our Teacher of the Year process. Our community fully bought into the Teacher of the Year. All of our teachers that were chosen by each school received diamond pendants from one of our jewelers in Marion County. So that, yeah, it was small.
Small diamond.
It was a small diamond. But it was a diamond pendant.
That counts.
And, you know, that shows that your community is supportive of your teachers. We got to the point where we were giving away a car to our top teacher of the year. And that was the commitment. We went out and sold teacher of the year as this is your way of giving back to our teachers. Our school level teacher of the year received a pendant, $100 and school supplies. I mean, it was a little list, and so the higher you went, and if you were fortunate to be the teacher of the year, that teacher of the year received a car. The runner-up one year received a year gas paid for a year. So our community stepped in and helped us support that teacher of the year program. We are working on our employee of the year in Manatee, and we've started other processes of, again, getting the community more involved so that it's not just the school district. Our community is showing how much they truly appreciate the teachers and other employees in the classroom.
Thank you.
Now, you mentioned, also following up on Ms. Hawley's question, you mentioned a method or methods of how you allow principals to provide input. How do you what kind of methods can you come up with in allowing other employees to provide input in their particular departments, whether it be transportation or maintenance or whatever department they might be in, so that they can also have a voice? Do you have any practices that you've done or your county has done?
Well, the practices are pretty much similar. Our transportation department, now I'm not over transportation. Don Hall, who's my counterpart, he has quarterly meetings with transportation. So during those meetings, he's not meeting with all the bus drivers, but he is meeting with a group of bus drivers that can give input. We have recently gone through a major transition in our transportation department, and that transition occurred from input from the bus drivers, from the district coordinators, and he would not have known that information any other way if he had not had those quarterly meetings. I believe the role of the superintendent is to ensure that you are hearing the pulse of your school district, and the only way you can hear the pulse is you actually hear from them. You have to set that time where your school-based secretary is still like, oh, well, I gave that idea and they implemented, and then you need to give them credit. Mr. Hall is very good at when we make adjustments, he gives credit to the person who gave the suggestion. And we do it at a school board meeting or during our public comments. And I try to do the same thing. When something positive happens, I try to make sure that that employee has been given credit, and I try to do it in a public setting so other people know how much I appreciate what they've done. But quarterly meetings are a good way to get the pulse and the input from other employees. Yesterday, on my traveling here to St. Lucie, I needed to talk to my curriculum team, and I just said, can you get them in a room and turn on a speakerphone? We'll have a phone conference. I'm driving, and I wasn't holding my phone. It was on voice speaker. So I'm having a meeting with the instructional specialist. And when I get to the hotel, there's an email from the group saying, you just don't know how much that meant to them to know that you were busy doing something else, but yet you still took the time to get their input or hear what they had to say about this change that's about to come about. You could have just sent an email and told them it was going to happen, but you personalize it by at least having a phone conference and that they could ask you questions personally. So I think that's a beginning of ensuring that you have those meetings with not only your teachers, but your non-instructional staff, your bus drivers, your food service, all the areas that support our children.
Thank you, Dr. Greene.
Okay. That's all of the official questions.
Okay.
Okay. That doesn't mean we're done. And you already have some idea of our group and how we work. But is there anything you would like for us to know? Anything you'd like to tell us or maybe even ask us that doesn't show up in the paperwork we have or the opportunities we've had to have chats?
Well, I'd like to know, what are you looking for in a superintendent?
I think that's a fair question. And we are looking for someone who will hit the ground running. We are very, very involved with our community. So we're looking for someone who is probably almost perfect. Miss Holly always has a question that I think maybe to be the right time.
Follow up.
Okay. Well, you asked the question, so this is what we expect. We expect 25-hour work days, 8 days a week.
Okay.
And in that, where will you find your life balance?
Well, my children are either in college or they're exploring their own life. And so my husband and I pretty much work 25 hours a day, 8 days a week. But in our time that we spend together, you know, I attend church on Sunday, and that is work in that the community still sees me as a person. They see me as a person of faith, and they know that I have their children. You know, it's lovely to be able to go and say, "Hey, sweetie." Now, I might not really know their name, but they think I know their name because I called them sweetie, and I gave them a hug. And their parents look at me and like, "Oh, do you know who that is?" Yeah, that's the deputy superintendent coming over. I work really hard, but I play equally really hard. My husband and I are avid golfers, so many times you're going to a charity event, I can play golf. So, hey, I fit work. You can kind of mix it together. You know, my husband and I, we love to dance, and so I kind of make the things I like to do kind of fit into work as well. So I'm good with 25, 8 days a week.
And we'll be right there with you. You can be assured of that.
Now, how would you work with our business leaders on economic development as you see it fitting into our school district and our children?
Well, I'm hoping that they'll allow me to join their board, be a part of their board, because if you don't have good schools, it impacts the economic development of the community. People don't want to move to that community. People will move to communities when they feel the schools are good and they have choices of great programs. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention that in Marion County, the superintendent was a part of the Economic Development Council, and many of those meetings, the school district was almost like right in the center of their discussion. And so when an industry came, or they were trying to bring E1, I literally flew, and you'll know this name, with Pete Tesh to New York. And I had to sell them on our school district. And when you have great schools, that's an easy sell. When you don't have high quality schools, then it becomes an interesting, you start to see how good of a salesperson I can be. So I think we need to be heavily tied. We need to be at the table. We need to understand, where does the community want to go. Part of that E1 was us adding a particular academy at one of our high schools, and E1 became their partner. So it serves both. It's a give and take. They have needs, and we need to see how we can prepare our students to meet the needs of this community, whether it's business, nonprofit organizations. We need to be that player at the table. We need to be a part of the conversation. And so as your next superintendent, I will be talking to Mr. Tesh of, I want to be a part of the, whether it's a council or a board, and participate in that process.
Dr. Greene, what is your strategic plan to raise school grades and graduation rates?
Well, that strategic plan is a little lengthy, so I'll try to give the abbreviated version. I look at our system through a multi-tiered support system. You have some schools that have needs that are greater than others, and then you have some schools that are considered your high flyers. You need to have first a standard for high quality instruction and curriculum and resources, and that has to be across the entire school district. Once you have that in place, then you start looking at the little differences for each of the schools. So you may have a D or an F school that have some unique needs. Part of the thing that what we did in Manatee is we developed our own internal DA team. We still had the state team there, but we had our own team. And our team was the lead for everything that happened with those D and F schools. Now, when I came to Manatee, we had 18 D and F schools. Today, we only have 9. That team was able to put in a laser-like focus for those schools unique to their situation.
And you've been there for 2 years.
2 years, yes, ma'am. Been there for 2 years. And of those schools, I believe 3 of them went up 2 letter grades. And 50% of them are no longer in DA. That team still exists, and now that team is focused on the remaining schools in DA, and they are able to provide resources. They're able to attack whatever is happening at that school rather quickly. And so part of that is I've empowered that team to be able to make decisions along with the principal. The principal and the lead, the director of the school improvement become like a partnership. They work together to review everything happening at that school. They work together to look at possible roadblocks. One of the schools that we're currently working with, one of the roadblocks was chronic absenteeism. That team is going to now make a recommendation, Dr. Greene. This school needs whether a full-time social worker or a social worker assistant whose only job is to attack this because this is a roadblock. And that's how we started raising our letter grade. When I came to Manatee, 60% of our schools were A through C. Today, 80% of them are A through C. And it is a multi-tiered attack. Laser-like focus for those that are truly struggling the most. The standard resources given to everyone so that your middle school, your middle tiered schools have the support they need, and then your high flyer schools still being held to the same standard that everyone else is. And that way we're all accountable. We all know what our role is in the process. We all know that we have flexibility within, I like to call flexibility within fences, and the fence is the standard. And so the top tier schools don't feel like someone's coming in to change everything that's happening. Your middle tier schools feel like, okay, we're no longer left out in the cold. We're getting these same resources. And then those schools that are truly struggling, they truly feel like the district is there to support them. And so that would be the initial process of raising our letter grades. Graduation rate is different. Our high schools have other issues that they face other than just school grades. There are other things that come into play with their school grades. But graduation is about, can I keep you engaged and can I keep you coming to school every day? And that when you start in 9th grade, 4 years later, you're going to leave in 12th grade. So I would need to do an analysis of what's preventing us from moving beyond 76% of a graduation rate. What are we doing for dropout prevention? What are we doing at the middle school? Because really, dropout prevention doesn't start at high school. It needed to start probably somewhere around 6th grade, that you're trying to ensure that these students graduate. Currently, we have a program in Manatee called Project Hope. Project Hope is for our overage 8th graders. They were any 8th grader that was 3 units short of leaving middle school. We brought them to a certain school location. We gave them high school instruction so that when they earned that unit, they were also earning a high school credit. We started with 150 students. Today, I believe 95% have recouped all their units. 95% are now, they're all at high school. Just a few students that we needed to do some different things. They're now pretty much on track to complete not only most of their 9th grade credits, but some of them are getting 10th grade credits while they're still identified technically as an 8th grader. And so we believe that those students, if you give them, that's why we call it Project Hope, that they may continue through those 4 years. Now, our next step is who's going to monitor them once they graduate out of Project Hope, which would be at the end of this year. And so part of the process is now we're working on a plan. Well, hopefully they will work on a plan of how they're going to track the students from 10th to 12th grade. So that's one project we had to increase the graduation rate. Another piece is Mr. Mills has brought to Manatee that I truly think is phenomenal is this what we call on-time 9th graders, and that is putting in a early warning system. So at semester, the principal run your early warning system. I need you to know how many of your 9th graders are have D's and F's at this point. What's the plan? What is your action plan to fix that? How do you get them back on track? And too often we're not really looking at that data because kids can get lost in big high schools. You know, we have our largest high school is over 2,600 students. It's very easy to get lost in the minutia of just high school. So once you've been identified in the early warning system, then we start looking at do you belong to a club? Are you in athletics? What are all the things that keep students engaged? Then we work on getting them engaged into those activities so that we can continue to monitor their grades, inspire them to do better in school, and to work with them. And for our African American males, that's part of that comprehensive plan, identifying mentors for them to help mentor them through their 9th through 12th grade high school years.
Very good. We have a little bit more time, so
Yeah. Could I
we
have
open
a
the floor.
follow-up
Yes.
question on that? Dr. Greene, I appreciate the term you used, flexibility within fences. Does that carry over to staffing formulas? Are you saying that you would enable schools that might need more or less of a certain staff person to have that flexibility to utilize that rather than a one-size-fits-all staffing formula?
Well, that's not my initial staffing formula. I have to be honest. We start with the standard staffing formula. When I came to Manatee, they were allowed to trade in what they call trade-ins. They would trade a unit in for something else. And we came in and developed a standardized staffing formula for all schools as the base. That goes back to that making sure someone doesn't think, well, I'm not being supported. Why do they get that unit and I don't? So we start with a standardized formula-driven staffing plan. So every school has a media specialist. I know it's you probably would think this is foreign, but when I came, Manatee only 25% of their schools had a media specialist because they had the flexibility to trade it in for something else. That, in my opinion, is back to her question. That's a non-negotiable. Every school will have a media specialist.
Exactly,
So,
and I was speaking beyond the baseline
Okay.
in essence of,
Yeah.
to look at each individual school, that because the needs, one size doesn't fit all, and what one
Absolutely.
school may need, another may not, and that sort of thing. So that's what you're driving at with flexibility within the
Yes.
fences?
So we start with the fence, and then we look at what programs are you offering at that school. For here's an example of flexibility. We have IB at one of our high schools, ACE at another high school, and the early college program. Well, I believe for those programs to be successful, you need a coordinator. That's all their job is, to manage those programs, improve enrollment. They're sort of the face of those programs. So each of those high schools received an IB coordinator, but it is a teaching position. The other received an ACE coordinator, and the other high school had an early college coordinator, because their enrollment wasn't where it should be, because these are great programs. It just, there was no one who had the time to go out and sort of sell that program. And so we did, that's what I mean by flexibility in fences, and giving people the resources or human resources that are needed to support what's happening at their school.
I'm going to borrow that term from you.
Thank you.
You may. Any more questions, board
I have a
members?
question. Dr. Greene, one thing that I think is a challenge everywhere nationally is our ESE special need population, specifically children in the spectrum, autism, and so forth. And there is cutting edge information constantly coming out about how we work with students in the school population. It is a challenge, and I just want to hear a little bit about your thoughts when you have a few minutes. So,
Well, in Manatee, we have close to 10,000 ESE students, IEP-driven, and I think that's almost twice the size here in St. Lucie. So I've had a vast experience with ESE, and it really starts with having a strong ESE director or executive director who is knowledgeable about the cutting edge of all types of programs. In Marion County, for our ASD, we used a curriculum out of University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. They came and they trained our entire staff on, one, how to identify ASD students who needed that more smaller environment and to be more, I don't want to say isolated, but in self-contained, and then also helping us with ASD students who can be out in the general classroom. And how do you provide that support for the classroom teacher? So I'm very aware of the challenges that are being faced with ESE, but I also know that the state of Florida has indicated they have to graduate. And therefore, the only way I know that they're going to graduate is they have to have access to on-grade level curriculum. You have to be able to scaffold for their needs, but in the end, for them to have a high school diploma, they have to have access to the same general education as our gen ed students. The question is, what resources and support are we going to put at that school to not only support the student, but also support the classroom teacher? And so one of the things we did in Marion County is we had support facilitators. They were teachers, ESE certified teachers, whose whole job was to support the classroom. They didn't have a classroom themselves. They were to support those students who were inclusion and support that classroom teacher with strategies of how do you help Diana, who is ASD. She can do the classwork, but she needs this type of support, or she needs this adjustment, and she'll be successful. So that would be something I would look at here, but it really does, it's back to one size does not fit all. I would need to know the dynamics, how things are laid out in St. Lucie, and work with the executive director of ESE and start making the changes necessary so that our ESE students will be graduating just like our gen ed students.
Dr. Greene, you have about 5 more minutes, and with that, I'd like to ask you to cover 2 questions. Tell us your perspective on early childhood education, and secondly, what is it that you need from us as a board to help you be effective, if indeed you were chosen for superintendent?
Early childhood education is paramount. My dissertation was on when Florida went to mandatory retention at 3rd grade. What would that do to a student that had to go through retention? The first year, we had 1,000 students who possibly would have been retained in 3rd grade, but we ended up with 700. My research ended up showing that you can do a major intervention, and that next year they may actually perform better, but about 2 years later, they're no different than the students who did qualify for retention but somehow met one of those criteria to be promoted. There was no significant difference between the student who was retained and the student who wasn't, other than the student who was retained was a grade level behind those who were promoted. So, what's the key? It's early childhood. Our data shows that in Marion County, 98% of the students who attended our pre-K program were not retained in 3rd grade. in Manatee County, it shows 94% of the students who attend a pre-K, high-quality pre-K program, they're not retained in third grade. So pre-K is the answer for that. I started in Manatee, Title I pre-K. It's the first time. We currently have 14 classes serving almost 500 students. And if chosen as your superintendent, if you don't have Title I pre-K, I will be setting that as a priority, because the research is very clear. If you get them early and if they're in a high-quality program, they will be ready by third grade. And if they're not retained in third grade, they are much more likely to graduate. On our data in Marion, if you were retained in third grade, you had a 69% of dropping out. If you retained one more time after that, the game was over. It was almost 100% you dropped out of school. So the answer is not retention. The key is intervening early, getting them here at the age of 4 in a high-quality, year-round program, and continuing that support for them as they matriculate through the school system. What support do I need from the board? I need to understand, as a board, where do you want to go? What is your vision for St. Lucie? And then I need to, how should I put this? I need your support to allow me to get you there. Allow me to do what I need, the strategies, the processes to put in place. And what I will do is that we will do this as a team. We will do it together. It will not be about Dr. Greene, because it's not about us. I think someone said that during lunch. It's not about us. It's about the students of Manatee County. It's about St. Lucie. St. Lucie County.
All students.
Yeah, all students. Because our community needs them to be successful. Because if they're not, they're going to be robbing in our homes. They're going to be creating chaos that doesn't make living in St. Lucie a positive experience. So I just need us to become a team, that we may not agree on everything, but that we are willing to be open and listen, and that we are willing to be a risk taker. I'm a risk taker within fences. I'm not that big of, I don't go way out there, but I set the
Flexibility.
yeah,
though. I
flexibility
love that.
within fences.
I'm going to have that plastered on my walls.
Okay.
We have just about a minute or two, but if any other board member has anything they want
Well,
to
I
say at
think
this
I should
time.
end with what I've said before, is that our board is fairly dynamic. We are very focused. We have had the shared vision for a very long time that's taken us to where we are now. Our pledge is always to make sure we help you avoid any minefields in the community, to build bridges with everybody in the community and beyond, so that you have this base of support that is totally inclusive. Also, that we will be open to hear things we don't like, because we know you will be open to hear things you don't want to hear also.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Greene. We appreciate you coming to be a part of this process. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.